He mistook a stranger's car for an Uber, and the Mafia boss inside ends up falling for him. Finn yanked open the car door and slid into the back seat, exhaling in relief. "Finally," he muttered, tossing his bag onto his lap. The rain outside poured down in heavy sheets, soaking the pavement and making the city glow under the streetlights. He had been waiting for this Uber forever, and if he was late to his brother's engagement party, he'd never hear the end of it. The car pulled away from the curb smoothly. It wasn't until he buckled his seat belt that he noticed he wasn't alone. A man sat beside him, dressed in an expensive-looking black Mafia suit. His sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal a silver watch that probably cost more than his rent. His sharp jawline and piercing dark eyes gave him an aura of dangerous authority, and the way his brows lifted in mild amusement told him he was just as surprised by his presence as he was by his. "You're not my driver," Finn blurted, heart pounding. He smirked, leaning back against the leather seat. "No, I'm not. And I'm guessing you're not the package I was told to expect." Finn's stomach twisted. "Wait, this isn't my Uber." "Nope," he glanced at his phone. "Unless you're a confidential file, which I highly doubt." "Oh my God," he groaned, pressing his hands to his face. "I took the wrong car." The driver cleared his throat. "Sir, would you like me to pull over?" The man beside him, who carried himself with the kind of confidence that came with either extreme wealth or extreme menace, glanced at him, considering. "Where are you headed?" He hesitated. "The Rosewood Hotel." His lips twitched. "Interesting. That's where I'm going too." Finn narrowed his eyes. "Wait, are you messing with me?" "Not at all." He looked amused. "Looks like fate wanted us to share a ride." He sighed, glancing out the window. He could have demanded the driver pull over, but in this weather, finding another Uber would take forever, and if they were heading to the same place. "Fine," he muttered, "but don't get any ideas." He chuckled, running a hand through his dark hair. "Trust me, kid. You're the one who jumped into my car." Finn ignored the way his stomach flipped at the condescending but somehow thrilling way he said, "kid," instead. He crossed his arms and stared ahead, determined to make this ride as uninteresting as possible. But the man beside him didn't seem to have the same plan. "You don't look like the Rosewood type," he observed. He shot him a look. "And what exactly is the Rosewood type?" "Overdressed, pretentious, bored," he smirked. "You seem different." He narrowed his eyes. "Is that your way of insulting me?" "Not at all. I find different interesting." Finn rolled his eyes. "Well, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm going to my brother's engagement party." His brows lifted slightly. "And you don't sound thrilled about it." He hesitated. "It's complicated. Family drama." He shot him a look. "You ask a lot of questions." He shrugged. "Makes the ride more entertaining." He sighed, shaking his head. "Let's just say my brother is marrying into a very wealthy family, and they've made it clear that I don't exactly fit in." His gaze flickered with something unreadable. "Their loss." Finn blinked, caught off guard by the sudden sincerity in his voice. But before he could respond, the car pulled to a stop in front of the Grand Hotel entrance. The valet rushed to open the door, and before he could react, the man beside him slipped out first. "Wait," he called, stepping out after him. "You never told me your name." He turned, giving him a slow, knowing smile. "Dante," and then, without another word, he disappeared into the hotel. Finn stood frozen, the rain now just a soft drizzle around him. There was something about him, Dante, that felt different, magnetic. Shaking his head, he pushed the thought away. He had a party to attend. Little did he know, he wasn't done with Dante, not even close. Finn stepped into the grand ballroom, his dress shoes clicking against the polished marble floor. The space was breathtaking. Golden chandeliers cast a warm glow over elegantly dressed guests, and a string quartet played softly in the background. Waiters moved through the crowd with silver trays of champagne, and the scent of roses and expensive cologne filled the air. He smoothed his navy blue suit, suddenly feeling self-conscious. The suit was nice, but it wasn't designer, and compared to the shimmering couture around him, he felt like an outsider. Finn. His brother, Liam, rushed toward him, his diamond cufflinks catching the light. Liam looked stunning in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his blonde hair swept back perfectly. "You're late?" Liam whispered, looping his arm through Finn's and steering him toward the main event space. "I got held up," Finn said vaguely, deciding against mentioning the car mix-up. Liam sighed. "Well, you're here now. Just please try to be on your best behavior. Okay? You know how the Montgomerys are."
Finn stiffened.
Of course, the Montgomerys. His brother's soon-to-be in-laws. Old money, powerful, the kind of people who looked at Finn and saw nothing but an inconvenience. He bit back a sharp response, choosing instead to smile. "I'll be a perfect angel." Liam gave him a wary glance before leading him deeper into the ballroom. As they moved through the crowd, Finn caught snippets of hushed conversations. Business deals, stock markets, luxury vacations in the south of France. He exhaled slowly. Just a few hours. He could survive a few hours. But then, just as Liam stopped to introduce him to someone, Finn caught sight of a familiar figure across the room. Dante. He was standing near the bar, effortlessly commanding attention. His black suit was crisp, his posture relaxed, and yet there was something undeniably powerful and dangerous about him. He was deep in conversation with an older man who looked important, maybe even one of the Montgomerys. Finn's stomach twisted. What was he doing here? As if sensing his gaze, Dante looked up. Their eyes met, and then he smirked. Finn's pulse skipped. Before he could react, Liam tugged at his arm. "Finn, this is Mr. Montgomery," Liam said, his voice unnaturally high. Finn turned to face a tall, silver-haired man with sharp blue eyes. He extended a hand, his expression polite but distant. "Ah, so you're the younger brother," he said smoothly. "Liam has told us so much about you." Finn shook his hand, his grip firm. "All good things, I hope." The older man chuckled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course." Before the conversation could continue, a new voice entered the mix. "I see you've met Finn." Finn turned sharply as Dante stepped into the small circle. He slid effortlessly into the conversation, his presence commanding. "Dante," Mr. Montgomery greeted, his tone suddenly deferential, laced with a hint of fear. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight." "I had a last-minute change of plans," Dante replied smoothly. His eyes flickered to Finn, amusement dancing behind them. "And I'm glad I did." Finn's heart pounded. Wait, Dante knew Mr. Montgomery? Liam's fiancé, Andrew, suddenly appeared, shaking Dante's hand with a nervous familiarity. "Dante," Andrew said with a strained grin, "didn't know you'd be in town." Dante smirked. "I'm full of surprises." Finn was still trying to piece everything together when Liam leaned in and whispered urgently, "You know Dante Moretti?"
Finn blinked.
"Moretti?" Liam gave him a look like he was insane. "Dante Moretti, as in, the head of the Moretti crime family." Finn's breath caught. Dante was a mob boss, powerful, feared mafia boss. Everything clicked into place. The confidence, the expensive suit, the aura of danger, the way he carried himself like he didn't have to answer to anyone. And he had jumped into his car like an idiot. Dante seemed to be enjoying the realization dawning on his face because his smirk only deepened. "Finn and I had an interesting car ride together," he said casually, taking a sip of his champagne. Mr. Montgomery's brows lifted slightly in surprise, while Andrew chuckled nervously. "That must have been entertaining." Finn swallowed, forcing himself to stay composed. "Well," he said, lifting his chin, "it certainly wasn't boring." Dante's lips twitched with amusement. The conversation flowed, but Finn barely processed it. He was too busy trying to wrap his head around the fact that he had spent the last 20 minutes talking to one of the most powerful and dangerous men in the city without even knowing it. And now he was watching him like he found him utterly fascinating. The night had just taken a turn he hadn't expected, and something told him Dante wasn't done surprising him yet. Finn needed air. After the unexpected revelation about Dante, The room had started to feel stifling. He excused himself from the conversation as gracefully as possible and made his way toward the balcony. The moment he stepped outside, the cool night air kissed his skin, and he inhaled deeply. His heart was still pounding. Dante Moretti, a mafia boss, a man who, by all accounts, existed in a world far removed from his. And yet, just hours ago, he'd been sitting beside him in a car, thinking he was just some arrogant but intriguing stranger. A soft chuckle behind him made him stiffen. "You ran away." He turned to find Dante leaning casually against the doorway, watching him with those sharp, dark eyes. His suit jacket was unbuttoned now, his stance exuding an effortless confidence. "I didn't run away," he countered, crossing his arms. "I just needed a moment." He stepped closer, the scent of his expensive cologne surrounding him. "Overwhelmed?" He scoffed. "Why would I be overwhelmed?" His lips curved slightly. "Because you just found out I'm not some random guy you shared a car with."
I'm Dante Moretti.
He rolled his eyes. "Well, excuse me for not keeping up with the city's criminal underworld." His chuckle was deep, rich. "Most people recognize me immediately. You, on the other hand, had no idea." He shrugged, refusing to let him see how much he unsettled him. "Should I be impressed?" His gaze flickered with something unreadable. "I don't need you to be impressed, Finn. I just need you to be honest." His breath hitched slightly. There was something about the way he said his name, like he was savoring it. He turned back toward the cityscape, gripping the cool metal railing. "I just don't understand why you care." Dante stepped beside him, his voice quieter now. "Because you're different." He glanced at him, skeptical. "Different how?" "You're not trying to impress anyone here," he said, tilting his head slightly. "You don't care about status, money, or power. You walked into this world like an outsider, but instead of scrambling to fit in, you just exist. I don't see that often." Finn swallowed hard. He wasn't sure why his words affected him so much, but they did. Before he could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted them. "Ah, there you are, Dante." Finn turned to see Mr. Montgomery stepping onto the balcony, his expression unreadable. Dante straightened slightly. "Something on your mind?" Mr. Montgomery's gaze flickered briefly to Finn before settling back on Dante. "I wanted to speak with you about that shipment. Something private." Finn knew what that meant. His cue to leave. He forced a polite smile. "I should get back inside." Dante hesitated for a beat, like he wanted to say something, but then he simply gave him a small nod. "Enjoy your evening, Finn." With that, he slipped past them and back into the ballroom, his pulse still unsteady. He should have been relieved to escape the intensity of Dante's presence. So why did it feel like he was walking away from something he wasn't ready to let go of? The night continued in a blur of polite conversations and forced smiles. Finn kept replaying his interaction with Dante, but he forced himself to stay focused. This was Liam's night, and he wouldn't let himself get swept up in a distraction, especially not one as dangerous as Dante Moretti. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. He had just stepped toward the exit, ready to leave, when a familiar voice stopped him. "Leaving so soon?" His breath caught as he turned to see Dante standing there, hands in his pockets, watching him with an unreadable expression. He forced a small smile. "It's been a long night." He studied him for a moment before stepping closer. "Come with me."
Finn blinked.
"Excuse me?" "I want to show you something," he said simply. He hesitated. Every logical part of his brain screamed that this was a bad idea. But there was something about Dante, something magnetic, something that made it impossible to say no. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "Fine. But if this is some elaborate setup to impress me with your ill-gotten wealth, I'm not interested." Dante smirked. "Noted." Minutes later, they were stepping into a sleek black car. Finn had no idea where they were going, but he couldn't bring himself to ask. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged, electric. Finally, the car pulled to a stop in front of a skyscraper with floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Dante led him inside and up a private elevator. The moment the doors opened, Finn's breath caught. The space was dimly lit, but the view was breathtaking. They were in a massive penthouse, with windows overlooking the entire city, the skyline glowing like something out of a dream. It took him a moment to realize where they were. "This is your home," he murmured. Dante nodded, watching his reaction carefully. He turned to him, brow raised. "You brought me to your home." He leaned against a large desk, his expression softer now. "I wanted to show you something real, not just the surface-level version of my life." Finn crossed his arms, skeptical. "And why do you care what I think?" His gaze locked onto his. "Because you're the first person in a long time who doesn't look at me and see Dante Moretti, the mob boss. You just see me." His heart stuttered. This was dangerous. Dante Moretti wasn't a man who made casual gestures. Everything he did had purpose, intent. And right now, all of that intensity was focused on him. He swallowed hard. "You barely know me." His lips twitched. "I know enough." He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to look away from his piercing stare. This was supposed to be just another night, just another event he had to endure. But now it felt like something else entirely. Something he wasn't sure he was ready for. Finn knew he should leave. Everything about the situation screamed danger, not the kind that threatened his safety, but the kind that threatened his heart. Dante Moretti was a man used to getting what he wanted, and right now, the way he looked at him made it clear he wanted him. His pulse pounded in his ears as he turned toward the massive windows, pretending to admire the view. The city stretched out endlessly before him, glittering and alive. "You brought me here to show me something real," he said, his voice softer now. "But that doesn't explain why." Dante stepped closer, his presence warm behind him. "Because I don't want this to be just another passing moment." He swallowed hard, his fingers gripping the back of a leather chair. "Dante." He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind his ear. The simple touch sent a shiver down his spine. "Tell me you don't feel it, too." Finn turned to face him, his breath catching. His dark eyes burned with something raw, something unguarded. He had seen him charming, amused, and confident. But this was something else. Vulnerable. "I do," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But that doesn't mean it makes sense." His lips curled slightly. "Since when has anything worth having ever made sense?" He let out a shaky breath. "You're a mafia boss, Dante. You live in a world I don't belong to." His expression turned serious. "That's where you're wrong, Finn. I don't care about any of that. Not when I'm with you." His chest tightened. "You barely know me." Dante reached for his hand, threading his fingers through his. "I know that you're strong-willed, that you don't pretend to be someone you're not, that you walk into a room full of people who underestimate you, and you refuse to let it define you." His throat tightened. "Dante, I know that I've been surrounded by people my entire life, but you're the first person who's made me feel like I'm actually being seen." The weight of his words settled deep in his chest, pressing against something he hadn't even realized was vulnerable. He had spent so long feeling like he was on the outside of everything, never quite belonging, never quite enough for the world his brother had stepped into so effortlessly. But Dante didn't look at him like he was less. He looked at him like he was everything. "I don't do things halfway, Finn," he murmured. "When I want something, I go after it completely." His heart pounded. "And what exactly do you want?" His grip on his hand tightened slightly. "You." The word was simple, direct, and it shattered every last piece of resistance he had left. Before he could second-guess himself, before he could let logic overpower the rush of emotions, he surged forward. Their lips met in a kiss that stole the breath from his lungs. Dante responded instantly, his arms wrapping around him, pulling him flush against him. The kiss was deep, consuming, like a man who had been starving finally getting a taste of what he needed most. Finn melted into him, his fingers tangling in his hair as his hands slid down his back, holding him as if he had no intention of ever letting go. The city lights burned behind them, but the only thing he could feel was him. When they finally broke apart, their breaths mingling, Dante rested his forehead against his. "I wasn't expecting you," he admitted, his voice rough, "but I think you might be the best thing that's ever happened to me." His heart twisted. "You don't even know where this will go." His thumb traced lightly along his jaw. "I don't need to. I just know I don't want to let you go." Tears pricked at his eyes, but they weren't from sadness. They were from something terrifying and new, something he hadn't dared to hope for. Dante Moretti wasn't just a man passing through his life. He was about to change it forever. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid to let him. The next morning, Finn woke up to sunlight streaming through his apartment window. For a moment, he lay still, his mind replaying every second of the night before. The stolen moments on the balcony, Dante's confession. The way his kiss had made him feel like he was standing on the edge of something vast and exhilarating. He had kissed Dante Moretti, and he hadn't regretted a single second of it. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling him from his thoughts. He reached for it, his heart skipping when he saw his name on the screen. "Dante, did you sleep well?" A small smile tugged at his lips. He hesitated only a second before replying. "Finn, surprisingly, yes. You?" His response came almost immediately. "Dante, not as well as I would have if you were beside me." His breath caught heat rushing to his cheeks. He was impossible, infuriating, and yet he couldn't stop the way his stomach flipped at his words. "Finn, you really don't give up, do you?" "Dante, not when it's something I want. Have dinner with me tonight." He chewed his lip, torn between excitement and hesitation. This wasn't just a casual fling. Dante had made it clear that he wanted more, and despite every logical reason to walk away, he couldn't deny that he wanted more, too. After a long pause, he typed out a single word.
Finn, okay.
That evening, Dante didn't just send a car. He arrived at his doorstep himself. When Finn opened the door, he found him leaning casually against the frame, looking unfairly gorgeous in a dark navy suit. His hair slightly tousled like he had run his fingers through it one too many times. "Ready?" he asked, his voice smooth, his eyes flickering over him in quiet appreciation. He nodded, stepping out. "Where are we going?" He smirked. "You'll see." The drive was smooth, the city lights casting a golden glow over the streets. It wasn't until they pulled up in front of an elegant rooftop restaurant that Finn realized just how much effort Dante had put into this. They were escorted to a private, secluded table overlooking the skyline, candles flickering between them, soft music playing in the background. It felt intimate, thoughtful, and entirely too perfect. "You do realize this is a lot for a second date," he teased, unfolding his napkin. Dante leaned forward, amusement dancing in his eyes. "You'll learn that when I do something, I don't do it halfway." He exhaled a laugh, shaking his head. "Should have guessed." As the night unfolded, conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about everything. His childhood, Dante's rise to power, their fears, their dreams. And with every passing moment, Finn felt himself sinking deeper, the walls he had tried to keep up crumbling against the force of Dante's undeniable presence. At some point, he reached across the table, taking his hand in his. "I meant what I said last night," he murmured. "I don't want this to be temporary." His heart pounded. "Dante." He squeezed his fingers gently. "I know it's fast, and I know I probably terrify you a little." His lips quirked in a small smile. "But I also know what I want, and that's you." Finn swallowed past the lump in his throat. He had spent so much time believing he wasn't meant for this world, that he would always be the boy standing on the outside looking in. But Dante didn't just pull him in, he made him feel like he belonged. He took a shaky breath, then tightened his grip on his hand. "Okay." His brows lifted slightly. "Okay?" He laughed softly. "Okay, let's see where this goes." Dante exhaled, relief flashing across his face before he brought his hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against his knuckles. "You won't regret it." And as he looked into his eyes, so full of certainty, he realized something terrifying and wonderful all at once. He already didn't. Weeks passed, and their relationship only deepened. Dante was relentless in the best way. Thoughtful, attentive, and always finding ways to remind him that he wasn't just another passing fling. He sent flowers to his office, took him on spontaneous weekend getaways, and never let a day go by without reminding him how much he meant to him. But more than the grand gestures, it was the quiet moments that mattered most. The way he listened when he spoke, the way he pulled him close when he was overwhelmed, the way he made him feel like he was the most important thing in his world. And for the first time in his life, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was. One evening, Dante surprised him with a trip to a secluded estate just outside the city. The place was breathtaking. Rolling hills, a private lake, the kind of quiet that made the rest of the world disappear. As they walked along the water's edge, Finn glanced over at him, curiosity tugging at him. "Why did you bring me here?" Dante slowed to a stop, turning to face him fully. His expression was unreadable, but there was something intense in his gaze. "Because this is where I want to build a life," he said quietly. "And I wanted you to see it." His breath caught. "Dante." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. His heart stopped. He opened it, revealing a stunning ring, elegant, timeless, and undeniably perfect. "I know this is fast," he admitted, stepping closer. "But I also know that I don't want to spend another second wondering if I'll lose you." He exhaled, his voice steady. "Finn, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down, and I don't ever want to go back to a world where you're not in it." Tears blurred his vision. "Dante, I love you," he murmured, his thumb brushing his cheek. "And I want forever with you if you'll have me." His chest ached with the force of everything he felt. The fear, the hesitation, it all melted away, replaced by something stronger, something certain. He let out a watery laugh, nodding as tears spilled down his cheeks. "Yes." Dante let out a shaky breath before slipping the ring onto his finger, then pulling him into his arms, his lips capturing his in a kiss that sealed everything between them. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Finn realized something he had never believed possible. He wasn't standing on the outside anymore. He was exactly where he was meant to be, right beside Dante, forever.